all here. Thank you for showing up. So, who can remind us the topic we discussed? Unmute your mics. Please unmute your mics. We will be it's an interactive session for start before we go to what we have for today. So, who can remind us what we talked about in our last class? Anyone? Can anyone give it a try? If you're in a place where you cannot speak, you can drop it as a chat in the chat box. Our last topic, what we talked about in our class last week, Saturday. Saturday was our last class last week. Who wants to remind us, jot our memory on what we did in our last class? Anyone?
Transport systems.
Transport system. Thank you, Christine. Transport system. In our last class, we talked about transport system. Okay, before I go on, does anybody have a question on transport system before we go to what we have for today? Does anyone have a question? If you have a question, please signify. If you don't have a question, you can respond and tell us and mention that you do not have a question, so we can move on.
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, Lucas, do you have a question? Thank you, Christine. Lucas, do you have a question? From the last topic we did, transport system. Do you have a question on it? Okay, Melody, do you have a question from our last topic? Okay, Lucas, I got your message. Melody, are you there? Do you have a question from our last topic?
No, ma.
Okay. And Egwagi, do you have a question from our last topic? I apologize if I didn't get the pronunciation of your name correctly. Okay, I suppose the person is not close. All right, so since there are no questions from our last topic, I'm going to ask questions. So who can tell us about the transport system in human beings? Does anyone want to tell us about the transport system in human beings? Anyone? Anyone wants to jot our memory? Okay, let me start by asking specific questions then. The transport system in plants is about what? Is about what? Anyone? Transport system in plants. Anyone?
Involves the process of translocation.
Translocation, okay. And which involve the xylem and the phloem. Which one is responsible for water conduction? The xylem or the phloem? Anybody?
The xylem.
Okay, and the second one, the phloem, is responsible for conduction of food. Okay. All right, that's correct. So who can tell us a function of blood? A function of blood. Anyone? A function of blood? Just that water back in the fridge. Don't waste it because you will not come
It
back
helps
to
in
it.
transportation.
It helps in what?
Transportation.
Transportation of what? Don't go and buy water. It's not what you drink. Even though you don't.
Oxygen, nutrients, and waste products.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Who can tell us the characteristics of blood? Anyone tell us the characteristics of blood?
Red blood cells.
Characteristics of blood, not component of blood. A red blood cells is one of the component of blood. I'm asking about the characteristics of blood. Anyone? You're welcome to class, Efosa. Thank you for joining. Yes, characteristics of blood. Anyone? What are the components of blood? Or the types of blood cells that we have?
The plasma, white
Okay.
blood cells,
Okay.
um, platelets, and
Now
red
we
blood
have
cells.
red blood cell, white blood cell.
Okay. Thank you. What's the lifespan of red blood cells? The lifespan.
120 days.
Okay. Thank you. Where are red blood cells produced? I mentioned about 2 or 3 places where red blood cells can be produced in human beings. So can anyone tell us one location where red blood cells are produced?
Bone marrow.
Okay, thank you. Bone marrow. The death of red blood cells, where does it take place? Death of red blood cells, where does it take place? Anyone? Death of red blood cells. When red blood cells reach their lifespan of 120 days,
Spleen.
what happens to them?
Spleen.
Spleen. Thank you. Thank you, spleen. Okay, so who can tell us the types of white blood cells that we have? Types of white blood cells that we have. Anyone?
Anglicite.
What? I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Anglicite.
Can you spell it? Please spell it.
Okay. AGRAN
Okay.
CULYTE.
Oh, okay. You mean a granulocyte. Okay. You know,
Okay.
you see that's the thing about biology. You might not get the pronunciation correctly. However, once your spelling is correct, that is all that matters. So that was why I asked you to spell it. So what you meant to say to call is a granulocyte. We have two classes of white blood cells. We have the granulocytes, the one that contains granules, which include the neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils. And we have the agranulocyte, the one that does not contain granules, which includes the lymphocytes and the monocytes. right, who can tell us the functions of red blood cells? Can anyone tell us the functions of red blood cells?
It carries oxygen from the lungs to all parts of the body using hemoglobin.
That's red blood cells. I'm asking
Yes.
about the functions of white blood cells. White
But I
blood
said red.
cells.
But you said blood, the word.
Oh, okay. I said function of blood cells. Sorry. I meant what are the functions of white blood cells?
Okay.
Yeah.
Serves as a defense mechanism for the body.
Yes, it serves as a defense mechanism. I think I did mention that the white blood cells are like soldiers. They are like our body soldiers, our body security. They protect our body from invasion by foreign organisms. That is what they do. Just like the soldiers are across the borders in Nigeria, protecting Nigeria from invasion of foreign individuals. That's just how the white blood cells are. They are like the body soldiers, and they protect our body from invasion from foreign organisms. All right, thank you for that. What are the media of transportation? This question is a very common question in WIEC questions, especially the theoretical aspects. What are the media of transportation?
Is it for blood?
Anyone? No, I mentioned media of transportation, and I mentioned like 5 medium of transport in human beings, in animals, in plants. Can anyone remember?
Cytoplasm.
About me and Golden, you're welcome to class. Cytoplasm, yes.
We still have the xylem and phloem also.
Oh, no. You got the first one right, cytoplasm. We have blood in human beings, in animals. We have cell sap and latex in plants, especially. We have
Okay.
lymph through the lymphatic system. Okay. The circulatory system in human beings is made up of what? What did you say?
The tap.
The heart, blood, and blood vessel.
The heart, blood, and blood vessels.
You want
So
the
what are
first
these
one.
blood vessels that we have? What are these blood vessels that we
Arteries,
have?
arteries, veins, and capillaries.
Yes, we have arteries, we have veins, and we have capillaries. What are the functions of the arteries?
Carries blood away from the heart.
Okay, it carries blood away from the heart to where?
Hmm. Um. Shit.
Carries blood away from the heart and head to where? Where is that blood going?
Forgotten.
Who wants to chip something in there? When arteries carry blood away from the heart, where is it taking it to? Who wants to help us out in that corner?
To, tis- to
Anyone?
tissues and
Yeah,
organs.
yeah, it carries blood away from the heart to other tissues, other cells, other parts of the body. How about veins? What's the function of vein?
They carry blood back to the heart.
Carry blood back to the heart. Except for which one? Except for which vessel? Did I mention pulmonary vessels, pulmonary arteries, and vein? Did I make mention of it in our last class? You know, we just mentioned now that artery carries blood away from the heart to other part of the body, while veins carry blood from other part of the body to the heart. Now that reminds me, What kind of blood does the artery carry? Oxygenated or deoxygenated blood? What kind of blood does the artery
Oxygenated.
carry?
Oxygenated.
Okay. Why the vein carries deoxygenated blood? And of course, you know, oxygenated blood is a blood that is rich in oxygen,
Oxygen. Yeah.
while deoxygenated blood is a blood that is not rich in oxygen, it is poor in oxygen. All right, so except for the pulmonary arteries and veins that performs opposite function, pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood and pulmonary veins carries oxygenated blood. So who can tell us about the heart, the human heart? How many chambers does the human heart have? Yes, chambers of the heart.
Four.
4.
That's four
Okay.
chambers.
Four
Four
chambers.
chambers, yes. Can you mention those chambers?
The right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle.
Okay, that is correct. How many layers does the wall of the heart have?
Three layers, I think. Or
Okay,
four.
3 layers.
Oh.
3 layers. Can we mention them? Can you mention those layers of the heart?
Endocardium and microcardium. That is the two I remember.
Okay, we have endocardium, we have epicardium,
Okay.
and then we have pericardium. All right, that's all we have for today. Okay, that's that about last week. Let's go on to what we have for today. Today we'll be talking about the respiratory system. So as we are beginning the class, if in the course of my explanation you have a question, please do well to note down your question. You can note down your question on a pen with a pen and a paper, or you can drop your question in the chat box. And after I'm done explaining, I'm going to open the floor and ask you to unmute your mics so you can ask your questions freely and we can tend to them. So today we'll be talking about the respiratory system. And when we're talking about the respiratory system, what is the function of the respiratory system? It is a system of organs that is responsible for gas exchange, responsible for gaseous exchange in the body, how oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is given off. That is gaseous. That is the function of the respiratory system. And what is gaseous exchange? When we talk about gaseous exchange, what does it mean? It is a process through which an organism takes in oxygen and releases carbon dioxide into the environment. And we can also define gaseous exchange as a process between a living organism and the non-living and its environment, the non-living environment. Now, there are different types of respiratory system depending on which organism it is. We have respiratory system through body surface, respiratory system through skin, respiratory system through gills, respiratory system through tracheal system, and respiratory system through lungs. So we'll be talking about this part one after the other. So when we are talking about now the mechanism of respiration, we have mechanism of respiration in higher animals and mechanism of respiration in lower animals. So talking about the mechanism of respiration in lower animals, in lower organisms, let me put it that way. We have respiration through body surface and respiration through the tracheal system. When we are talking about respiration through body surface, this is the gaseous exchange that takes place directly through the surface of the body of that organism, and it occurs between that organism and obviously its environment. And they do not require respiratory organs to perform body surface respiration. Example of such organisms, we have amoeba and we have paramecium. They are examples of lower animals that respire via their body surfaces. And how does this gaseous exchange occur? This gaseous exchange occurs through a simple process of diffusion. Can anybody tell us about diffusion? You must have, if you read about diffusion before, give me an emoji. If you've heard about diffusion before, drop an emoji.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. So who's going to give us the answer on diffusion?
Now, is it what is diffusion?
Yes, what is the meaning of diffusion? Yes.
Diffusion can be defined as the movement of particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration until there's equal distribution.
Okay, until an equilibrium is reached. So that is what takes place in an amoeba during respiration. There is gaseous exchange, which occurs via simple diffusion in along the body surface of the amoeba and the environment. So oxygen diffuses into the cell, while carbon dioxide diffuses out of the cell. Then we have the tracheal system, which is a system that is composed of tiny air tubes called trachea. And this trachea system, they channel oxygen directly to different parts in insects. Trachea system is common in insects. Now, when we're talking about this trachea system, the trachea system leads to a valve-like opening that we call spiracle. Now, these spiracles, they open and close via small muscles which control the flow of air outside and into the cells of the insect. Then the mechanism of respiration in higher animals like human beings, animals like fishes, other animals like frogs, and then some higher vertebrate animals. Then talking about the gills, we have the mechanism of respiration in higher organisms includes through gills, skin or cutaneous respiration, and the lungs or pulmonary gas exchange, and also the buccal or mouth gas exchange. When we are talking about the gills and the brachial system, when I mention the word gills, the first thing that will come to your mind is what? A fish, right? That's the first thing that will come to your mind. So under this mechanism of respiration, the gill or brachial system will be focusing more on respiratory system and respiratory mode in. Now the respiratory structure that is found in aquatic animals. So who can tell us if you've heard about the word aquatic before? Signify. You've heard the word aquatic, terrestrial. Thank you, Lucas. So is it only Lucas that have heard about aquatic and terrestrial before? Okay, thank you, Obawumi. Thank you, Golden. All right, thank you, Christine. So who can tell us what is, when they say an organism is an aquatic animal, what does it mean? Who wants to answer that question?
It lives in water.
It lives in water. Aquatic organisms are organisms that live in water. So an example of an aquatic organism is the fish, right? Good. Now, living in water, water is rich in oxygen because a component of water is oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen. So aquatic organisms like fish, they depend on oxygen that is dissolved in the water around them for gaseous exchange. Remember, water is made up of two components, hydrogen 1 and 2 oxygen, right? Now, when we're talking about hydrogen and oxygen, a fish that is already swimming in water, what happens to it? It's getting oxygen. It will get oxygen from the water, right? And getting oxygen from the water, how would the fish get oxygen from the water? Now, the gills of the fish, I know some of us here would have assisted our mom in dealing with fishes, if I'm right. Some of us will have assisted our mom in dealing with fishes. When your mom goes to the market and brings back the fish, she tells you, yeah, take the fish to the kitchen. Go and wash it, go and rinse it, clean up the fish. When you get to the head of that fish, there is something that you put your hand and remove like this, reddish in color. If you are getting what I'm saying, drop an emoji. That thing that you are removing from that fish, red like this, that look like little arc, that's the gills of the fish. That gill is what assists the fish with respiration in water. That fish is what that gills is what assists the fish with respiration in water. Now, these gills, they are enclosed in a structure called the gill chambers. They are enclosed in a structure called the gill chambers. And these gill chambers, they lie on either side of the head. So on the right side, they have a gill chamber, and on the left side, the fish has a gill chamber. And each of these gill has something called the filament, the gill filament. And this gill filament is supplied richly with blood. And you know, in the blood, we have gases dissolved in the blood: oxygen, carbon dioxide. Then we have the gill raker that prevents food particles from entering into the gill chamber, and the gill arch that forms the base. Now, this the gill chamber I mentioned about that I talked about earlier, they are enclosed by a structure, a body structure called the operculum. Now, when the fish breathes in, it's taking in water because it's living in water, Abby. When the fish breathes in, it closes the operculum. Once that operculum closes, water is drawn into the mouth and is forced through the gills, through those gill slits. And water passes over the gill filament and dissolved the dissolved oxygen that is present in the water where that fish is living is taken up in the blood by the blood, and carbon dioxide is also released into the water. So as the fish is breathing in and taking in water, the gills is filtering out oxygen for the fish to take in, at the same time giving off carbon dioxide back into the water, and the water is flushing out the CO2 present in the system of the fish. Now, outside water bodies, fish have to breathe in a much faster rate to get sufficient oxygen. Eventually, they will die without water. Fishes cannot survive without water, unless it's something that watch alien movies, like this alien movie that was released quite early this year. I can't remember the title, about salts and one man, where the fish is surviving on land. That only occurs in movies anyways. I don't think I've heard of any fish that was able to survive on land. You see, even when you go to the market, those live fish, they tell you to come and buy live fish, point and kill. You see them inside water, yes or no? They put those fish inside water, like catfish. How many of you know catfish? If you know catfish, respond. When you see catfish, where are they putting them? Inside water. If they remove the catfish from the water, after a while, that catfish will die. So if you want to eat all those kind of fish, and they're telling you it's live fish, it's still alive, because they put it in a bowl, or they have a small pond where they put those fish and they are filling it with water, because without water the fish will die. If you go to the market and buy 10 live fish now, and you just put it in a bowl, you do not put water, nothing is there, they will eventually die. So fishes cannot survive without water. Please give me a moment. Okay, you go. All right, so talking about skin or cutaneous respiration. 200. Talking about skin or cutaneous respiration, from the word skin, you know they are respiring through their skin, right? Respiration is taken through the skin. The cutaneous respiration is the exchange of respiratory gases through the skin, and it is commonly found in amphibians. What are amphibians? Yeah. What are amphibians? What are amphibians? Anybody wants to tell us what amphibians are? Okay. If you've heard about amphibians before, please signify. Amphibians, those organisms that live. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So now,
They
live
in water and land.
Good. Amphibians are organisms that are able to survive both on land and water. An example of an amphibian is what?
A frog.
Okay, good. Now when a frog is in water. Okay, thank you so much. When a frog is in water, they are able to live their life normally. When they leave the water, especially during dry season, when they leave the water and they come to land, they are able to live their lives perfectly also. That is why during rainy season, you'll be seeing a lot of frog and toad jumping up and down. Why? Because when rain falls, should I say fortunately or unfortunately? I don't know which one to say. In Nigeria, we have potholes. You see all those streets that has those clay soils and everywhere, those muddy water building up. You find those frog and toad living there during rainy season. Abi, but once it gets to dry season, you will not find it. Now, a frog is able to cope on land and even breathe in and out on land. And when they move back to water, they are able to breathe in and out, and nothing is going wrong with them. So we're going to be talking about that mechanism now. Now, if you look at the body of a frog and a toad, it's usually moist. When I say moist, it's wet. It looks wet. How many of you have noticed that? If you've noticed a frog or a toad and you've taken a good look at it, you must have noticed their body is always wet. Okay, good. Now, this moisture on their body is part of what assists them with respiring, with respiration. Now, they have mucus that are secreted by the mucus gland, which is present on their skin. And this mucus gland is what makes their skin moist, so that oxygen is able to diffuse in easily and carbon dioxide is able to diffuse out easily. Why? Because of the presence of their moist skin. Because their skin is moist, it's rich in oxygen also. So oxygen is able to diffuse into the cell, and CO2 is able to move out of the cell through diffusion also. Now, they have a skin that is also well vascularized, and since it's vascularized, well vascularized, it enables the oxygen dissolved in water and oxygen present in the air to be able to diffuse in through the skin. There are also organisms that also respire through skin or cutaneous respiration. Those organisms belong to the class Annelida. Annelids. Have you heard about class Annelida before? From your classification of living things, where we group living things based on kingdom, phylum, class, family, other species. Class Annelida, Annelids. So which organism? Who can give me an example of an organism? You're welcome, Matilda. Who can give me an example of organisms that belong to the class Annelida? A common example, a very common one. Anyone? Okay, you forgot it. Okay. All right, we have the earthworm. If you know earthworm, raise up your hand. Signify by raising by sending an emoji. You've heard about earthworms before. You know earthworm, you've seen one. When we get to rainy season itself, you'll be seeing them anyhow. They'll be coming out in your bathrooms, coming out when it just finished raining and the likes. Earthworms. Okay, good. So only one person knows what earthworm is. That's quite interesting. All right. So they also respire through their skin. Earthworm, their body is always moist. If you've held an earthworm before, if you've touched it before, you see that their body is wet and slippery. So because their body is wet, always wet and moist, just like the frogs, they are also able to respire through their skin. They do not have a certain organ for respiration. Earthworms don't have a certain organ for respiration. They respire through their skin. So talking about lungs or pulmonary gas exchange, this is the gas exchange that is carried out through the lungs. This one, they need an organ. And the name of that organ that they need is the lungs. Now, the case study we'll be using here, we'll be using the frog and the toad as a case study. You know, I said the frog is an amphibian able to respire in water and on land. In water, they use their skin, also called cutaneous respiration, for gaseous exchange. And on land, they use their lungs for respiration. Now, when a frog and a toad is on land, gaseous exchange is carried out through their lungs. That is the organ for their respiration. It's carried out through their lungs, and they draw in air into their mouth cavity, and air comes into the to the throat through their nostrils, and there's contraction, and the inhaled air passes through their lungs, filters oxygen and filters carbon dioxide and gives it off. However, you need to note that lung respiration in toad and frog requires a lot of energy. They burn energy faster. They burn a lot of energy easily. Then we have the buccal or mouth gas exchange. the buccal or mouth gas exchange, in which the mouth serves as an efficient gas exchange surface because it has a large surface area. Now, while breathing through the mouth, the throat, for example, does not take air into the lungs. It rather forces it back outside. And there is exchange of respiratory gases that takes place through the lining of the mouth. There is a lining in the mouth. They eliminate carbon dioxide and take in oxygen. Now, we have gaseous exchange in human beings. Gaseous exchange in human beings. Before I talk about that, I would like to share my screen with you on gaseous exchange. While we talk about gaseous exchange in human beings, give me a moment while I share my screen. Okay. If you can see my screen, please signify. Okay. Okay. Signify if you can see my screen. Okay. Only one person is seeing my screen. Okay. 3 people. Okay. All right. Then let's go on. Talking about the respiratory system in human beings. What are the functions of the respiratory system in human beings? The major function of respiratory system or of the respiratory tract in human beings is to distribute air, gaseous exchange, it filters, it warms, and it humidifies. It's also associated with olfaction, that is smell, and speech. Now, what is the pathway of air for the respiratory tract in human beings? With your nose, you breathe in through your nose, and from the nose, the air moves to the pharynx. When we talked about the digestive system, I mentioned that we have 2 types of pharynx. We have the oropharynx that is associated with the digestive system, and we have the nasopharynx that is associated with the nose, the respiratory system. So from the nose, the air moves to the nasopharynx, from there to the larynx, then to the trachea, which a layman calls the windpipe, and from the windpipe, the trachea, it moves to the lungs. Now we have the upper respiratory tract, and we also have the lower respiratory tract. After, what are the organs that are involved in the respiration? I mentioned it, the nose, the pharynx, the trachea, or the windpipe. Also, let's include the bronchi and alveoli, and then the lungs, of course. We find the bronchi and alveoli inside the lungs. So we can just collectively say we have the nose, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, and we have the lungs. Inside the lungs is where we find the bronchi and the alveoli. Now, in the upper respiratory tract, after the nose receives air, the air is passed to the pharynx, to the nasopharynx, and from the nasopharynx, the air moves and goes to the trachea. And and the trachea, what is the trachea? The trachea is a C-shaped cartilaginous ring that and that cartilaginous ring helps to keep the trachea open for easy passage of air during breathing. Now, it's responsible for, it's just like the trachea functions just like our esophagus. That is just a passageway for food to get to the stomach. So the trachea or the windpipe is a passageway for air to get into the lungs. So the pathway of air inside the lungs, we have the main bronchi, the bronchial branches, the bronchioles, the terminal sac, and the alveoli. This is how air, once air enters into the bronchi, it moves to the bronchial branches, then it moves to the bronchioles, the terminal sac, and it gets to the alveoli. The alveoli, which is the last part, is where gaseous exchange occurs. That is where oxygen diffuses in and carbon dioxide diffuses out of the cell. Speaking about the bronchi, now we've talked about the nose. Okay, we've talked about the nose. Once you breathe in through your nose, through your nasal cavity, please note that the nostrils have 2 openings, right and left, and they allow entry of air. Also, our nose contains a structure called cilia that helps to trap dust or germs that may accompany air. Take it or leave it. As you are breathing in and out, you are taking in particles that you cannot see with your 2 naked eyes. Let me give you a practical example. If you take a lantern You put a lantern on your table by your side, sit down on that table and start reading. By the time you finish reading, after about 1 hour, 2 hours, by the time you finish reading, turn off that lantern. A lantern, no, not candle. Those one that usually bring out smoke. You read with it for like 1 hour or 2 hours. 2 hours is even too far. After you finish reading, turn off that lantern. Then take a white handkerchief. Use it to clean your nostrils, your nose. You will find that your nose will not be clean, it will be black. Why? Because as you are breathing in and out, with that lantern beside you, it's your nose, as you are breathing in air, you are taking in the soot. The soot that lantern gives off. That smoke is giving off soot. Those black substances coming out. Your nose is, as you are breathing in air, is going in through your nose also. But because your nose has a protective seal, protecting your nostrils. That is why when you clean your nose at time, you find some dirt. Those dirt that you find there are the particles that your nostrils have trapped in, so they don't get access into your lungs. Talking about the bronchi, when we get the trachea divides into two tubes, the right and left bronchi. The right and left bronchi. And this right and left bronchi, they divide into other branches called the bronchioles, the tertiary bronchi. Then the bronchioles empty, they empty into a sac called the alveoli, which I said is the last part in the respiratory system where gaseous exchange occurs. It is where gaseous exchange occurs, where oxygen binds to hemoglobin in the blood to form oxyhemoglobin, and it also helps in the production of surfactants. Then we have the lungs. The lungs are a pair, they are a pair of elastic organs. I liken the lungs to balloon. When you take a balloon now, when you inflate it with air, what happens to the balloon? It gets bigger. The more air you blow into it, the bigger it gets. What happens if you stop blowing air into it and you don't tie the mouth? The air starts what? Escaping, and the balloon deflates. So I like to liken the lungs to a balloon. The lungs can be expanded and it can be contracted by actions of muscles called intercostal muscles. Now we have two lungs, the right lung and the left lung. The right lung is larger than the left, is larger than the left lung because it's divided into three parts, three lobes: the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. While the left lung is divided into two lobes, the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. And also in the left lung, we have a depression, a notch called the cardiac notch, where the heart fits, where part of the heart fits into. That impression is present on the left lung. Now, both of our lungs, both right and left lung, they are covered by a double membrane called pleura. This pleura protects it. It also aids easy movement. It prevents friction also. It prevents friction. Then we have breathing muscles. We have muscles of inspiration, muscles of expiration. Inspiration means breathing in. Expiration means breathing out. So muscles of inspiration include the diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles. Muscles of expiration includes internal intercostal muscles and the abdominal muscles. Then we have the lung capacity, like the tidal volume, which is the amount of air we normally breathe in, the vital capacity, which is the largest amount of air we can breathe out at one time. Then we have the expiratory reserve volume, which is the air you can force out after tidal volume, and the inspiratory reserve volume, which is air you can force in after a tidal volume. Also, some facts about the respiratory system in human beings. Some of the facts include the epithelium of the lung cells. They contain structures called cilia. And these structures can become paralyzed in people who are smokers. Also, there are areas in the blood vessels that detect the amount of oxygen in the blood. For example, we have the carotid body, which is present in the neck. We have the aortic body, which is present in the chest. So talking about inspiration and expiration. Inspiration and expiration is simply referred to as the process of breathing. If you are following, drop an emoji. If you are following, drop an emoji. Thank you, Christine and Lucas. Now, what is breathing itself? Breathing is a physical, automatic, and mechanical action that quickens the rate of gaseous exchange in animals. And it has two phases: the phase of inspiration, where you breathe in air, and the phase of expiration, where you breathe out air. Now, during the process of inspiration, what happens? The muscles of your diaphragm, there's a structure called the diaphragm in the human body. It contracts. And when it contracts and moves, and air is taken in. And during expiration, the internal intercostal muscles, they contract to let the rib cage fall back to normal, touched by relaxation. Okay. All right, that is all that we have for today. Do we have anyone that asks questions? Before I ask questions, do you have anyone that asks questions? If you have questions, you can signify. Unmute your mics. Please unmute your mics. Please unmute your mics. Okay, nobody's. Are you out there? If you are following, please drop an emoji. If you are following, drop an emoji. Okay, please unmute your mics. Unmute your mics. It's time for us to interact. Okay, thank you, Lucas. The others, please unmute your mic. It's time for us to interact. Or before we go on with the interaction, I would like to take the attendance. Okay, so let me see who in class. Okay, Melody. Let's start with Melody. I think I've seen your name. Okay, Melody is in class. Melody is present. Let's see. Okay. Is another present person? Christine, are you present?
Yes, ma.
Christine, are you there? Okay. Is Joshua in class? Okay, Joshua is absent. Is God's time in class? Is Sharon in class? Okay. It's the same person. Please pay attention to your names. Is Ozazua in class? Is Jessica in class? Absent. Dubem Emma, are you in class? Is Praise in class? Is Golden in class?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I go. Okay, good. Is David in class? Is David in class? No. About me, are you in class? I think I've seen about me. About me, okay. I got your emoji. Rejoice Michael. Is Rejoice Michael in class? Okay. Is gospel in class? Gospel, are you in class? Is Isiri in class? Is Osazi in class?
Yes.
Okay. Success, are you in class? Is Precious in class? Is Efe in class? Okay, so I suppose that is all. Okay, I'm done marking the attendance, so let's go on. So nobody asked questions. Okay, I'm going to ask questions now. Listen to the questions. Used by a free living protozoa like amoeba is what? Body surface, gills, buccal cavity, spiracle. What's the respiratory structure in an amoeba? Is it body surface, gills, buccal cavity, or spiracle? Anyone? If you're following, please drop an emoji. Okay. If you're following, kindly drop an emoji. Can you all hear me? Am I having trouble? Okay, thank you, Christine and Lucas. So, Christine and Lucas, can you answer the question that I asked? Let me take the question again. The most efficient respiratory structure used by a free-living protozoa like amoeba is what? Body surface, gills, buccal cavity, spiracle.
I think the body surface.
Surface, thank you.
Teach us for lecture. Briefing.
Sorry. Let's see what other questions. Breathing is in two phases. Can you mention the phase? The phases of breathing. I think that was the last thing I mentioned, Seth. The phases of breathing. Can you mention them? We have two phases of breathing. Anyone wants to bail us out on that? Anyone? Okay. I said the phases of breathing involves is in two ways: inspiration and expiration. I mentioned that. The respiratory structure in amphibians is what? Please listen to this question again. The respiratory structure in amphibians is what? Skin only, lungs only, gills only, then the last option, skin and lungs.
Skin
Ma,
and lungs.
the question.
Okay, skin and lungs. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Does anybody have any question at this point? Does anyone have any question at this point? Questions? All right. If you don't have questions, this session is recorded. So whoever didn't join the class early, or whoever, whichever of your friends were was unable to join at all, the class is recorded and it's going to be uploaded and published for you to be able to access on your dashboard. So even if you were present in the class, you can still always go through it to see that there is no information that you missed. So if in the course of your personal reading, listening to the recorded session, you have questions, please note them down somewhere. Our next class is on Saturday by 7 p.m. So we'll be able to come together and you can ask your questions and we'll be able to talk about it there. So in the absence of questions, I would like to bring this class to a close. I'm going to see you on Saturday, this Saturday, by 7 p.m. Do have a good evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.